So Chaos Child has finally ended, and I think there's going to be a lot of confusion, as this was the most confusing episode, I could say, for the series. There's a lot to it, and I think it's left a little bit of interpretation for the viewer, as, I mean, obviously if you play the visual novel, I'm sure there is a pretty straightforward ending, but I think the way they handled this, I'm not sure exactly if this was anything anime original. I think this was probably either maybe it was the bad ending, I don't know, of the visual novel, because I don't want to say this was a bad ending, because I think this is a good ending, despite it having a sad outcome for our main character, because to me, the way this episode is actually directed, a lot of it being all in our main character's mind, him delusional because his father literally traps him in there and is willing to break his mind and crumble him, the same way in Chaos Head the series went, and to see how he ultimately escapes with his imaginary friend helping him in his mind to be able to break free of that delusion, him killing his father, stabbing him in the throat, to learn that this entire plan was eventually to clear Taku's name, so he would be hailed as a hero for this case, when all along she was playing his fake father, or his father, depending on how you want to look at it, to say that she was working with him, and ultimately this was an entire ploy so he could get his name clear, he would solve the case, and he wouldn't be someone that the media and everyone wants his head for. But Taku's not for that life, because Onoe's trying to blame herself for everything, but Taku's blaming himself because he created her. And she's just not having that. You can see the human emotion with her. It's really the first time since she's kind of revealed her face that we've really got some real human emotions with. And to see how she's just crying and breaking, and Taku's literally just trying to sever his connection with her, as it seems that with his D-Sword, he severed her memories connected to him. As we can see at the very end, you can see Onoe in a very nice room, she's waking up. So I think what he ultimately did at that scene, because he wasn't willing to forgive himself, he wasn't willing to let people hail him as a hero when all along, even if he didn't willingly do it, he was the cause of all this new generation madness. He gave himself up and is now in an insane asylum, in a loony bin, who to pretty much probably die alone, depending on what ultimately happens with that. But it seems like with the scene with Onoe at the end, it seems to me how I interpret the ending of basically he severed her memories, and ultimately she's just going to have a peaceful life in bliss, not knowing what she actually did and who Taku was and what ultimately happened, while Taku is probably going to die in an insane asylum. And it's kind of sad in that sense, but also it is happy in its own way, because it does end, but also Onoe, someone who you would think would just be the one to take the blunt of everything here, to just truly get the worst end of the stick, but ultimately she might have a peaceful life. There's also the way this could be interpreted of, you know, Onoe and Taku both died. I think there is multiple ways to interpret how this ends, but I don't think there's a right way to say this is exactly how it ends, because there is so many ways to interpret it, and I actually really like it for this, because this has been a wild ride, a lot of crazy theory crafting you could have, but ultimately the way I see it, Taku gave himself up to the authorities, took the blame for everything, because at the core he truly is the one to blame, because he did create Onoe, and this whole chain of events does lead up to him. I don't think he should blame himself, however I understand why he is doing it, and also I think Onoe just gets to live a life in peaceful bliss where he severs her memories and she gets to live a normal life, no longer just being a manipulator, a game maker for this sick and twisted scenario. I think Chaos Child was a very underappreciated series because people had very mixed opinions with Chaos Head. I think this was a phenomenal ride. It had its animation issues, it had its production issues. I mean, how many times was this delayed? But overall, this was a very fun experience. I think there was a lot to think about. Obviously, the information wasn't just being spoon-fed for you, but this doesn't feel like you need to go read the visual novel to understand what happened. As long as you watch it from start to finish, even if what you think the ending meant isn't actually what was intended with the visual novel, you still have a conclusive ending nonetheless, and I really enjoyed my stay with it. There was a couple of the side characters who I felt like really got kind of swept aside and felt like, what was their point of actually being there, because they didn't really serve a purpose, but most of the characters definitely had a purpose, and I'm very happy with the time I spent with this series, and really, I'm gonna miss it a lot. It was a really great entry to the semicolon series, and I look forward to see what the hell next entry comes our way. But for anyone who watched this episode, did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you think it was confusing? And what do you think the ending truly meant for yourself? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Before you leave, hit that like button to show your support. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.